Very good afternoon to everyone. I'm Chitra Devi, MICCI Secretary, and I would like to welcome all of you to our MICCI webinar on private education sector impact of COVID-19. I would like to thank all our participants today for tuning in through MICCI live stream Facebook. For today's webinar series, we have our moderator, Dr. Lim Si Boon. He's also our chairman for the MICCI Perak branch. With him together, there'll be two distinguished panelists, Tan Sri Prof. Dato' Teo Chiang Liang, Vice President of the Malaysian Association of Private Colleges and University, MICCI, who is also the director for Si Hoi Chan Holdings Group. He will be covering the topic on the impact of COVID-19 on international student enrollments at Malaysian private higher education institutions and measures to evaluate the impact. Our second panelist is Prof. Zita Mohammad Fahmi, Vice Chancellor of Quest International University. She's also the former Secretary of ASEAN Quality Assurance Network and Dean of Faculty of Law, UiTM. She will be covering the topic challenges and issues faced by the Malaysian private higher education brought about by COVID-19. Before we start, some housekeeping rules. Each speaker will have 10 minutes. In the end, there'll be a Q&A session. Participants are encouraged to post your questions on the Facebook Messenger. Kindly indicate your name, your company, and who the question is posted for. With that, I would like to hand over to our moderator, Dato' Lim Si Boon. Once again, thank you, participants, and I hope you all have a fruitful session. Dato' Lim, are you ready?
Thank you, Chitra. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Tan Sri Professor Teo, and welcome, Professor Zita.
Hi.
It has been a tumultuous 100 days for the private education industry as a whole. The private education industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry with significant foreign investment, a large number of foreign students, and a very significant employer in Malaysia. But today, we are not talking about just the private education industry. We are very focused on the private higher education industry, which covers colleges, university colleges, and universities, because it is actually a bigger portion of it rather than just the schools as well. So we are going to be exploring issues on the sustainability, the impact on policies, the new approaches. And this COVID-19 has impacted students, parents, lecturers, owners, and policymakers. So we won't dwell on the matter. I'm going to hand it over first to Tan Sri Teo, who will be sharing with you the current state of affairs for the industry, before I hand over to Professor Zita to speak on more specific issues on college, on a university or a college, and then we will open it up to the participants to pose your questions. And after that, we will take all the questions and all the things that have been said and put a paper together that we will be working closely with the Malaysian Association of Private Colleges and Universities and MICCI to approach the government to ensure that the policies and resources are adequately provided to sustain the industry. So without further ado, I hand it over to Tan Sri Professor Teo for his views.
Thank you, Dato' Lim. Good afternoon, all. Before I start, can I just give some information on background information about higher education in Malaysia. These statistics that I'm about to give are actually from the Ministry of Higher Education. As of December 2018, there are 1.33 million students enrolled in higher education. And out of these 1.33 million, 666,600 students are in private higher education institutions, and make up of private colleges, private university colleges, and private universities. And out of these, 92,400 are foreign students. It's interesting to note that the students in the private higher education institutions contribute about 31.5 billion ringgit to the GDP of the country in 2018. As for the foreign, 92,400 foreign students, they contribute about 11.3 billion to the GDP of this country. So the private higher education sector actually is an important player in the service industry in terms of contributing to the GDP of the country. And actually, as a matter of fact, many private higher education institutions are not operating at the built capacity. We still need more students. Okay, let's set the background. I will now cover on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the private higher education institutions. When MCO was enforced from 18 March 2020, it coincided with the period of the first peak period of enrollment for private higher education institutions. It's March-April time where the enrollment is peak, the first peak. And these are actually to capture the SPM students. Then when the MCO came in, we estimated that about 22,000 foreign students went back to their home country, and they are still there, waiting to see whether they can return to Malaysia. We think that half of them may not come back. They may probably continue to their education in their own countries. Last year, the country had 16,500 new students. This year, we expect the figure to drop to about 7,000 only. So it's a drastic drop. The COVID-19 pandemic and the MCO also impacted on the occupancy rate of our student accommodation, the student hostels. The occupancy rate has dropped to about 10 to 15%. So that's another blow. Another factor that's impacted on the cash flow is that as I speak, and since the MCO, a large proportion of the students are inclined not to pay the tuition fees until they come back to campus. So we have been operating without income actually since MCO started. And it's important to note that tuition fees take up 65 to 70% of our salaries take up 65 to 70% of the tuition fees that we collect. The other thing is I think there's also increasing pressure from parents and students to reduce the tuition fees being charged, because they say that they are studying online, so it should be cheaper. But actually, they should realize that it's an additional cost to deliver the lessons online, because we are using the same team of lecturers for a start, and then we have to put in all the different platforms and all that to deliver the lectures. And There is also the Star newspaper, I think on the 8th of June, reported that they interviewed some Malaysian students and found out that quite a number of them have decided not to enroll this year. In other words, to delay the enrollment to next year at private higher education institutions. So that's another headache for us. And I think all of us know that no retrenchment is taking place, unemployment is on the rise. The H newspaper 2 days ago reported that in April, unemployment rate hit 5%, which is higher than the Asian financial crisis when the unemployment rate hit 3.5%. So this is a big headache for us and for the students and their parents, because with this looming thing in the air, they may fear that they get retrenched. And if they get retrenched, then how are they going to finance the education of their children? So the question to ask here is, one of the areas where they can get finance is from the PTN loan. But unfortunately, the criteria for determining the amount of loan to be given, to be approved, depends on the income bracket of the father or the mother, mainly the parents. So if the student's parent is unemployed, then will they be able to get a PTN loan based on the current criteria? So perhaps there may be a need. I think there's a need to review during this period to consider giving this PTN loan to those who have been retrenched, who are unemployed. So these are some of the issues that we are facing, and it all leads to the question of how long more can we sustain, because our cash flow is affected. Like I said earlier, tuition fees are not coming in yet. Number of coming yet from the existing students, and new student enrollment is on the decline. So we are really facing a big headache, and the COVID-19 pandemic and the MCO has really hit us very, very hard. So this is where we are today, and we hope that the government take cognizance of the problems we are facing and see what they can do to lend a helping hand. Because with 666,000 students in private higher education, if 50% of us close down, and half the students will have no place to continue their education. So this is where we are. Okay, Dr. Lim, next.
I've been muted. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Tan Sri. It's been, I think you've actually pointed out some very significant points on the impact on the industry. And before we take any questions, I think some of them, our listeners will have questions already. So I think they can start posting them and we'll take them later. But before we address all the issues, I think I can just very quickly summarize it. What you've said is that it is a very significant industry, but you know, in this 100 days, you've actually seen new enrollment already almost half, especially from international students. It has impacted cash flow, and because students are inclined not to pay or delay payment, and your costs and your outflows remain very significant with rentals that are committed, with salaries are committed because you still run classes online, and people fail to recognize that delivering programs online incurs additional costs to both the colleges and probably the students as well. So it is going to be challenging, and the response from the policymakers are still very uncoordinated at this point. So those are some of the things that we hope we can address in the Q&A. And I will hand over to Professor Zita, who's going to share with us very specific issues a college faces, or university faces. So Professor Zita, your 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lim, and hi, Tan Sri. I mean, I echo what Tan Sri has said in terms of the major impact and upheaval it has done to the private higher education sector. And I've been with them in a way for so many years, and I know how important private higher education sector has been to Malaysian students in providing them access and quality higher education. But back to the institution themselves, what I've seen in terms of major impact, it basically is issue of sustainability. And financial stability is extremely important in the private sector to ensure sustainability, continuity, and quality of higher education. So we are caught with all those expectations, and financial stability is extremely important because it talks about quality of resources, education, lecturers, infrastructure, and so on. And lack of cash flow is definitely going to have impact on all of us running higher education institution today. I mean, if I go down to some of the basic items that have been raised by Tan Sri, I think we all agree enrollment of students is one of the major areas that needs to be addressed. Where are we going to get the students that are coming in? If the numbers are going down, can we relook at policies of student admission, for example? Whether they are international students or students going through foundation and other means of admission, is there any way we can widen the net to bring back the students to school? Because it is important that they come back and continue their studies. I think for some institutions that are running 70% science and technology kind of courses, definitely their physical presence in the institution is important. No doubt you can use digital technologies to create simulation, and other means of learning. But at the end of the day, physically it's important for them to come back to the labs. They need to do their practicum. They need to do their workshop training, their clinical training, and so on. So there's a need to actually look again at how to widen the kind of students that can come back earlier, and go back and look at what the institution can offer in return to ensure their safety. I mean, if I look at kindergartens, they are open with all kinds of health precautions being taken. I think the universities will also be able to provide those kind of precautions, provide they observe SOP. And I think Malaysians overall, if I have seen in the last 3 months, are quite good at observing all the requirements. I think it would slowly help the student to come back to school. I think digital learning is good. It's here to stay. It's going to be a permanent feature. It has been looming in the horizon, but I think being thrust right into the open, doing digital learning can be quite challenging for some institutions which are not agile enough. It doesn't have enough resources and technologies to turn their staff into online facilitator in teaching and learning. It's quite challenging. There's a bigger digital divide with the students, with the institutions and the faculty members. There's a need to actually address institutions like ours need to address to make sure our lecturers, students are oriented, are equipped to do online learning effectively. I think the other issue would be, I would think, is issue of getting how to maintain quality at the same time. The program have to meet the learning outcome. The students' graduate outcomes are still our concern. with this, and definitely there is a real need for us to rethink how our lecturers are being prepared to deal with this kind of contingencies. It's going to be a permanent feature. There's a lot of investment. It's not something that we can do overnight for all. It is going to be a learning curve. Hopefully it's a steep learning curve for all of us, having to use digital technologies in delivering learning and teaching. And of course, there are always exceptions to the rule, how to come back. But I think it's also important for us to get feedback. Feedback over the last 3 months for all of us who are also offering teaching online, from feedback from the lecturers, feedback from the students as to how they actually view this new learning mode, which is, I would suspect, going to be a fairly permanent learning mode for all in many ways, as to how they have actually grown, developed their own personality, their resilience to deal with these kind of issues, feedback from the lecturers, their readiness, so that we can go on improving the system, the mechanisms and so on. But again, the bottom line would be issue of, can we sustain this? Can we invest this? Do we have enough funding? Do we have enough support to fund this kind of teaching and learning activities? You need resources, you need a lot of autonomy, you need innovation, and we need help. Yeah, we think we should be able to work on this. I would think personally that we institutions should be able to work together. Look at our training, look at sharing capacity, look at some resources, good practices. Right now, half of us are in the dark, how to move on, what are the good practices that we should be able to adopt as we go on, because we want to sustain what we already have and make it better, despite all other challenges that we meet. And I think it's very important for universities and institutions to sit down and say, these are the things we need, what are the regulations that we need to review, what are the charges that we need to look at. We need to be, I think, quite clear about how we're going to go ahead, because this is a shared responsibility, I think, for all parties involved. I think we need really to collect all these ideas and approaches so that we are not lost. I mean, we have lots of things going. There are a lot of sharing that we can do. There are a lot of resources that we have. And of course, there are policies and guidelines and quality standards that we still need to observe. Maybe we still need to look at how flexible it is, how do we renegotiate some of these requirements with the authorities. Dr. Lim, that's my contribution at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Zita. So if I can just sort of summarize what Professor Zita has just mentioned, from a specific university point of view, that it's a disruption. This COVID-19 has been a disruption from your regular business as usual and the way we operate, because it talks about enrollment. How do you, if you have to go digital, how do you enroll students from overseas? And then you also talk about very specifically in science and technology and lab-based subjects. You cannot continue to do everything online, which is what some of the regulators have promoted at this point, because you need to be physically present. And if you do it, you come in for lab days and all that, that's an additional cost to the students. So there is an actual, while it may sound very practical, but there is actually a reality whether it can be executed. And then, of course, when you talk about going digital, which a lot of the colleges have started to do on a very short notice, there's a big divide between students and lecturers and access to internet from rural areas. Lecturers working from home may not have the same facilities, so they cannot deliver. So it's actually shown up that the system is not really in place, or the infrastructure is not really in place at this point. And you've also pointed out that if you go digital, you've got different set of student outcomes. We are not prepared for it. Employers have got different expectations, and so we cannot use the same measures that we have today for the students. So we again have to start really look at a lot of impact on the organization and on the systems that we have. And the unfortunate thing is the regulators are also facing this big challenge. They have to engage us, but because of the social distancing in the 100 days, I think engagement has also been a bit of a challenge, and therefore everybody is working in their own little bubble. And this has unfortunately resulted in people just sitting and waiting. And this unfortunately may impact sustainability, because without regulation and without knowing the incentives that are in place, people don't know where to invest, how to invest. So it is actually a very disruptive time from the association point of view, and also from a specific university point of view. So if I've summarized that, now I'm going to open this up to the to some of the audience, and I think first questions that we have is to either panelists. What do you think are the private educations with the sufficient reserves to ride out the current situation? So basically, if the minister says that you go online until the end of the year, what do you think, how many do you think can survive that period?
I think just comment, there are two things. One is, I think you got to take it from the point of view of the student and parents, and the other one is from the institution itself. Some students actually have, like what you said, Dr. Lim just now, internet access infrastructure is not well developed yet in this country. So some students have difficulty studying online because they have difficulty to access. Broadband is so limited and so slow and all that. So it's a big challenge, that one. From the institution point of view, we have to keep on investing and make things better, and that costs money. But we cannot do it alone. Like I said earlier, if the infrastructure for internet access for the whole country is still not well developed, it's no point us pumping in a lot of money and then some students have no access. And all the time we are talking about equal access for all students, right? If we start jump onto the technology wagon, then where's the equal access for all students? Some will be left out. You know, I agree with Prof. Zita that digital technology, use of technology will be here to stay. We have no choice, but we must go in cautiously and not jump into it, because then you end up wasting money. Not all students will benefit, and what happens at the end of the day? Everybody gets angry, right? The investor will say, what? I lost so much money. The students who got left out say, look, where's the equal access? Where's the equal opportunity for me to have a higher education? So we must be very cautious.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Professor Zita, any?
No, I think it's a difficult question to answer how many are going to survive this at this age of time. It is actually everybody have to start looking at their own capacity and capability as to how they can continue operating in this environment. Right now, I don't think we would have any clear idea. I mean, who would be able to have sufficient fund, like Tan Sri said, to be able to invest. I think we need help. We do need a some financial help policy along that line, because that investment has to be properly made. I mean, we have seen, cases where we have made investment in technology, but it doesn't, bring full benefit to everybody. So I think careful planning has got to be done at the national level as well.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you very much, Tan Sri. I think this leads to a very another set of questions. Actually, because like I said, these are challenging times. Different people, different capacity. It's just not talking about sustaining. If you want to be in this business, you really have to invest in the technology. And because there isn't clear policy or path, so you don't know what sort of technology, how much what areas to invest in. And then also for the students, I said access. So this, if we just talk about purely technology access, you will have the children in the or colleges in the cities having a distinct advantage, and those in the rural areas being further left behind. So it has, it's also talking about government investment as well. It's just not purely from the point of view of a private college. So I think one of the questions that this point leads to is that what would the private sector, what sort of stimulus would you be looking for to assist the private colleges and your industry? What would you ask the government to support? What areas would you look for? Tan Sri?
I think if, like Prof. Zita has said, investment in technology, which is changing so rapidly every day, is expensive, right? So there's a need for a lot of financing, and perhaps the government can set up special loan schemes for private higher education institutions to invest in technology. Special loan rates and special write-off in terms of income tax at the end of the year, like accelerated depreciation is one of them, and maybe even some tax holiday. Although all of us are not making profits, but hopefully we can make some, So financing is one of the biggest headache for all of us if you want not to jump onto the technology bandwagon. Right. And like I say, technology changes so quickly that by the time we invest and all that, 3 years down the line, something new is available and students may demand it. Then what do we do? So it's a very difficult balancing act. Invest now, how much to invest, how much of the technology to invest, knowing for a fact that 2 or 3 years down the line, there will be version 2 coming up and all that. So it's a big challenge.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Professor?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Tan Sri said in terms of, I think, a strong national policy statement on support for technology infrastructure for the higher education sector. We can run. Industry 4.0 is already here. There's already a strong policy movement towards it. So digitalization is already part of our life. It's just that I think COVID-19 makes it expedited the whole thing faster than we were prepared to face. Besides those technology, I think we need to equip our faculties, our management in the institution as to how to deal with these resources. Having technology but untrained people, it doesn't work either way. So I think there are many places and centers that actually give this kind of appropriate training to do online teaching, materials, open resources, and so on, so that it is less challenging for faculty members to move on, for administrators to actually embrace this change quite well internally. Because internally, I think the policies in the institutions must also address it effectively. And I think if there's a strong technology support, I think human resource development in terms of digital skills orientation to students to use all this technology has got to be brought into the picture to make it effective and working it's a long-term investment in human resource, both the students, institutions, and faculty members.
I think related to this, we should also think of students. There are still students who wish to be on campus, the feel of a campus. Like recently, the QS agency, QS ranking company, they conducted a survey comprising of 30,000 international students globally. And the survey was conducted between mid-February to May this year, and where online learning started to come in. And 46% of the 30,000 students indicated that they are prepared to start online education in their country, provided the following year they are able to go to that university to be on campus for face-to-face lectures. So there are still this group of students who wish to be on campus. So it's a very difficult decision to make. You cannot forget this group of students as well. You cannot just go stream ahead.
Yeah, Tan Sri, Dato' Lim, if I can add, I think the experiences in the university is that, yeah, they're happy to go online initially. They're quite happy to use technology in learning, doing assessment, assignments, and looking at lectures and so on. But after a while, they still want to come back to campus and have some face-to-face experience. I think it's a lot of community building, the human touch, in learning with their gurus in the campus, that gives that an additional quality to their learning. So I think there's a need to balance this a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Actually, the point about campus life and all that, yes, you need a lot of incentives to help us go to help us get to digital. You need the grants, the tax incentive, the soft loans, and then the training grants for the lecturers. That's something that the industry and MAPCU is now promoting with the government, and also I think soft loans out to the students and all that. But that's for predominant local ones. So maybe we should be exploring for international students as well. And of course, digital is only one part. Campus life still remain a unique need for many of the students. And I think this leads to the next question from Mr. John Wilson from Swinburne in Sarawak. Opinion from the two panelists. There are a lot of SOPs, okay, and that are going to be very strict, for students to come back online. So when do you think they're going to start opening up? Or what sort of SOPs they're going to be insisting on? And when will they be opening up the borders? Because the borders remain closed. When do you think they will open up for the new and existing students? And yeah, so the John Wilson would like to have your views on these two things, on the SOP, and also when and how are they going to open up the borders?
When is a big question, we do not know. But for foreign students who have gone home and waiting to come back, I think the government will be making an announcement, I hear, this Friday. That's tomorrow. A decision on letting them come back to continue their studies and what the SOPs will be. But they indicated that there will be, of course, there will be SOPs, but we do not know really whether they are SOPs or not. So it's not for us to say what the SOPs are, but there will be quite some standard SOPs like social distancing, 1 meter apart, all must wear face masks, all must have body temperature taken before you enter the campus or enter the classroom or the labs or the workshops and all that. Those will be quite standard. And I can't think of any other actually SOPs that they will require, because these are really what I've just mentioned is applicable to restaurants, shopping centers, offices, everywhere. So it should be applicable to education institutions. But what else can they implement is anybody's guess, you know. So it's very difficult to say. But I think I hope that the government, when tomorrow they decide that foreign students have gone home can come back, I hope they will also open it up to foreign students who come from what we call green zone countries for a start. Let them come. Don't stop there, right? And let them observe the SOPs. Every country is looking for foreign students, so we should not waste time, especially from the green zone countries. Let them come in and manage them. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri. Professor, you.
No, I just want to add on. I think the universities must also be equally prepared now to put their systems in place, all the health check, all the requirements, so that if they are inspected, they are ready to accept students. The foreign student probably will need a certificate of they're free from any health problem or health check, COVID, whatever it is, before they come into the country.
Now, I want to share from MICCI, from some of the other industries that we are involved in, from the point of MICCI, for some of the panelists, for some of the audience, it's not going to be so much the SOP on just the students coming back, like Tan Sri and Professor said. It's quite standard temperature. You need to make sure that there is spacing and all that. But it's actually for the institution. For some of the manufacturers, I can share with you that have got thousands or several hundred staff in there. You may put down a SOP, and if you actually adhere to the SOP, you can expect inspections to come in. We've had people all over Malaysia that MIDA is part of team MO. In this case, because it's manufacturing, MIDA, the health authorities, and then what they call it, JKKP, the various groups that have gone around with the police and all that, they will come in and they will inspect, and they will then give you things to rectify and correct. Okay, so they're not unreasonable. I think they are very reasonable. But you just need to make sure that you put things in place, and they, unless it's a major breach that they can see will affect the health and safety, then they will stop work. They will tell you to close the place down for you to rectify it, and they will come back in a very short period. So it's not that it's going to be you shut down and they shut down. I think they are not going to be unreasonable. That's the experience we've had with some of the other industries in services and in manufacturing. So I foresee that MOHE, or the Ministry of Education, would be also.
Okay.
So I think that I hope members will of the audience are reassured in that sense. I think there was also another question, a point that was made was, this is going to change the industry so much because you're going to have students who cannot afford to go to Ivy Leagues or the big, top universities, but he may look for lower cost packages now because of people putting up programs online. So you could actually get an Ivy League course package with a combination of that. So it may change the industry that he's going to get a degree from a lower ranked university, but he has got an Ivy League program. So there's going to be things like that happening. So it might actually affect some of the universities. And that is something that actually people are actually thinking of, because universities, if you go online, it's actually going to commoditize a degree. It's going to commoditize learning, and people may not pay because I can access different programs from all over the place. But is it the same as being physically present? Panelists, I don't know. Professor, what do you think? Is that going to be a challenge for you?
No, my personal view. I think online, Malaysia, we have gone down to blended learning. Yeah, and I think if I recall, MPA has accredited blended learning, has accredited online ODL learning of a few of the open universities in Malaysia. I think they have also started recognizing micro-credentialing. They're in the process of strengthening their policies on it. I would think in the long run, my stand would be it is important that these programs or learning are quality assured by the agency. In that sense, they will be recognized. There are, of course, different players in the system, but I think that's the value of our system. That there are many players offering good quality programs. It is there to stay. The system are already in place to be able to accommodate them. They have to go back to the policymaker, look at all those guidelines to see how they can actually take advantage of the guideline and provide the best for the students.
I agree with Prof. Zita that the issue of recognition is very important. Recognition of the qualification. I think like in Malaysia, if you want to work for the government, the government has a list of recognized universities globally. So if at the end of the day you wish to work for the government, then make sure you choose the universities that's recognized by the government. So whatever is offered online may not be recognized. So you just have to be careful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Sita, Tan Sri. Now, I think we haven't got any additional questions, but we're also down to our last, I think, 5-10 minutes of the webinar. So before we go, or before I summarize the webinar, I'd like to ask Tan Sri and Professor Zita, what are the 3 things you'd like the government to assist, and one advice to our peers out there, in the current circumstance? So 3 things that you would like from the government, and one advice to our peers who are listening. So who would like to start?
Tan Sri, that's the big picture.
I think all of us wish to have more foreign students to come to our shores. We have some advantages like affordability for the start. So I would wish, my first wish is that the immigration rules, EMGS rules governing entry of foreign citizens to this country be more facilitating and friendly. Right? You must have regulations that are interesting to them and don't put hurdles in their way to come to study in Malaysia. That's I think very important to increase the number of foreign students. As for the local students, which is the bread and butter actually of private higher education institutions, I think some of the rules and regulations I hope can be reviewed. I think the one very important one that we have been asking for is to again allow private higher education institutions to enroll and register students after SPM based on their forecast results. We have been doing this for quite a while until a few years ago. The government, the ministry decided to disallow it. And we have been asking, MICCI has been asking, say, please reconsider. Because why do you want the SPM students lepak around for 3 months doing nothing when they can start studying straight away based on forecast results? And our experience in the industry, by the private higher education institutions, is that at least 98% of the students who we previously were allowed to admit based on forecast results actually met or even did better than their forecast results. Anyway, all these students were given conditional offers those days. If they do not meet the forecast result, they have to leave. So it's a conditional offer and it's always there. So I hope the government, ministry and MQA will reconsider this and allow us to start enrolling these SPM students based on their forecast results.
Thank you.
The third one was my wish list. Wish list, I think we hope that the Ministry of Higher Education, we have been working on this for a long time to review all the acts, various acts, regulations and all that quickly so that they are more facilitating rather than punitive as it is now. Because, I mean, education, like any other industry, like technology, we are changing all the time. We are developing. We need to keep up with changes. So the acts currently are more stifling and they should be quickly reviewed and be facilitating.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Okay, so before I come back to you on one advisor, Professor Zita, the 3 things you would ask.
Okay, I think I was talking to my colleagues in the university. I think although there's a news circular coming out about the 5 categories of students that are allowed to come back earlier to the institution, perhaps they need to look at the students in different types of courses. They may have to come back earlier, those in the 2nd and 3rd semester, which requires more than just online lectures and tutorials and things like that. So that it's not just for one university, but I think this is a general feeling of all other universities, that there's a need to look at those who are going to be left behind and how do we actually make up the difference. So I hope that in due course things are almost settled, that they will look back at this and work out on the students which requires those more practical classes and so on. And if they are allowed, perhaps they can come back in batches or percentages of students that can come back so that they can fill up the institutions again. I think number 2, I always feel that with this new norm in teaching and learning, I hope that on one hand, the institution look at themselves and work on what they actually already have, their strength and their weakness. And on the other hand, we also need support in terms of further training and training and and capacity building. It should be a collective effort on both sides to make sure that things work out for the benefit of the students in the long run. Because I think at the end of the day, if quality is maintained, there's an issue of trust and confidence over the sector, and I think that's extremely important while we are handling all these these challenges that we are seeing in the private sector. I strongly feel that there should be a strong policy on technology support from the government in using this, because I look at it as a long-term requirement, as a long-term policy that is very practical. It is needed. And like what Tan Sri said, whether they are, what kind of incentive and support that we can get from technology development. So I will look at the issue of students. I will look at the issue of capacity building, the teaching and quality of teaching, learning, the human resource, because that affects the learning of the students. And as well as an issue on getting technology support from the authorities in the long run.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor. So before I come back to that, under this difficult circumstance, one advice from both the two of you to our audience, I just want to address one question that sort of just came in. There was a quick question on, is it possible to temporarily close and shut down a higher education institution totally until there's a clear vision for the future to preserve cash? I think the panelists are shaking their heads, and I can answer that. I think, honestly, that there is also a social responsibility. While on practical terms, something that could be done, like a hotel may shut down and furlough everybody until things start up again. But it's part of that value of a university and or a college, that there is a social responsibility. So that's why everybody is holding on, making sure that staff salaries are paid and things go on as much as possible. So I think from the panel, I think it's not something that can happen, or it's going to be practical at this point. It is something that is a very last resort, but not something that is on the first thing to do. I think that
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
No, I think the welfare of the students are extremely important. So it's not a matter of closing and opening the universities.
Yeah, and then from another person that has actually mentioned as well, will Malaysian universities continue to enroll students? And I believe there is. That's why Tan Sri and Professor is saying we need to look at making it friendlier, making it more accommodating, to make it so that they can come back as quickly as possible, because and that's what they are trying to do. But some things are actually holding them back, like the borders being closed. So we hope that tomorrow we will have some good news and better news, so that we could actually overcome this shortly. So the intakes are going to continue, right? But again, it's a balance, enrollment, virtual or otherwise, but people need to be physically present as well. So yes, I think I can answer on behalf that enrollment continues. So before we end, Asri, one advice for for all the colleges in this time, what would you suggest that they do?
I think all of us operators in this industry have been facing all kinds of challenges all the way, even before COVID-19. Now we are facing a new set of different challenges, which are even more difficult. So my advice is, I think we all cannot handle this alone. It's better if we handle it as an industry, as a sector, and share our problems, share our solutions among us. So one way is I'm promoting MAPCO, join the association, so we can communicate with each other, share our experiences, share our difficulties, and move ahead together. And it's easier for all of us if we all speak with one voice with the authorities, rather than, actually the authorities also find very actually encourage operators to join any one of the associations, so they can also it's easier for them to deal with issues that are raised to them. So my advice to them, let's share your experience, share our difficulties, and go forward together.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Professor?
No, I strongly support and agree with what Tan Sri has said. I think this is a collective issue, and it's a collective. We are all facing this together, and I think there's a lot of value in working together with the authorities to solve many of these problems that we are facing right now.
So in summary, I think the advice from both our panelists is that we need to work as an industry. So they'll work together, speak with one voice, and be represented with the government. So so what we can share with you is that I think some of the questions and the issues that have been brought up by the panelists, we will work closely with MAPCU and MICCI, because this is also a very international business with a lot of international investors, international students as well. So we will be working closely with two chambers and an association to represent the needs of the industry to the government. So I'd like to thank the panelists and all the questions that came up from the audience. Thank you very much. And I will hand this back to Chitra. Thank you, Chitra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for a lovely insight section. Thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you, Professor Zita. Thank you, Dato Lim. We apologize if we have some of the questions not picked up, I think, but all have been picked up except a last minute one that came in just now. Dato Lim, would you want?
Okay, so a quick one was I just saw that. Sorry for missing this one. There's a last minute question. What would be the panelists' view on shortening the duration of the programs to make up lost time so that the students can graduate on time?
Wow. That's $1 million question. I don't know whether you can learn, in an express manner and get the same learning outcomes. It is, we are caught with policies and regulations and durations on these. It's a difficult question for educators to actually say yes to it. Shortening the period of study. It depends how it's going to be conducted. Ansri?
I think, like you said, the important thing is the outcome, the learning outcomes. Why push them through a small tunnel and they come out knowing nothing, or knowing less than what they should be knowing? So I think it's, like you say, educators will not say yes to that.
Yeah.
We always talk about learning outcomes. That's important. Like you say, you bake a bread, you want a fully baked bread, you don't end up with a half-baked bread,
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think basically I understand, it's it would affect quality, and no educator would agree to that, because you need to make sure that time or the quality of the content is the same across all of them, and that they have been able to. Yes, some students may have it, but you've laws and you've got things that needs to be changed. So prescribed by law, you cannot do it, and from a quality point of view, we don't agree with it. So anyway, back to you, Chitra. Thank you very much, Tan Sri and Professor Zita.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Prof. Tan Sri, Dato. We'll meet again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.